Hi, what lurks beneath. I'll start by introducing myself. My name is Michael Kyer. What I have to share are a few notes that I've written down from my diary, all throughout my life. I've had encounters with things that I never thought were real. From the age of 5, I've seen creatures and beings that I thought were just from my imagination. The only reason I'm writing these publicly now is that I need help sorting through what I've seen. The problem with my understanding is that I was diagnosed with schizophrenia when I was only 29. I know that I've been talking to people and friends that have been gone or dead for a very long time, and I know during those times it's my brain messing with me. But I see things that sometimes are not quite sure if they're really there or not. In fact, one time, I saw a giraffe, but its shapes and spots were pink and green. That's during the time I visited a circus, and to this day, I couldn't tell you what exactly color the giraffe was. I should also note that I am partially colorblind. The problem with that is, I don't know what colors I have trouble seeing, because I don't know what they are. Anyway, I'll tell you about my encounters with these creatures that I think I saw, so you can help me figure out if they're exactly real. When I was 5, I had always wanted a puppy. All the kids in the neighborhood had one, and I thought I deserved one. That was, of course, before I knew how much of a responsibility they were. During the time, I lived in an area called Barstow, California, before my dad had to move far to work for Arkansas. If you know anything about that town, it's that you are either in summer or 5 degrees below summer heat. Luckily for me, I was fortunate enough to live next to a community that had its own park, and it wasn't that far away from my house. Since it was so close, my parents allowed me to play out there anytime I wanted to. During the days it was especially hot, I would like to sit in an area of bushes with the trees had circled around and made a sort of shaded area, just large enough for me to sit in. During summer, I would normally sit there since we didn't have a pool. I especially liked it there, because now and then, I would find a stray dog lying there. At first, I was scared of petting it, but it was an older dog that didn't seem to mind. After a few months, that dog became my very best friend. He was very old and seemed like he was at least 13. What was very distinctive of him was his big white eyebrows. My mother asked me why I came home with fur all over me, and I told her I would like to be playing with my friend and his dog. She told me that all I should say is goodbye to my friends while I could, because we were moving next week. I was sad, and for the rest of the week, I didn't see the dog. Sad that I was never going to see him again. I left my house for the last time. Our neighbor waved goodbye to us, and you could tell that he was sad about something. His name, and we'll call him Mr. Darrell, had always creeped me out, because he had extremely weird eyebrows. Anyway, after my dad had gotten us to a new job that sent us to Wyoming, after Kansas, we lived in a one-story house that wasn't that big, but he said it was only temporary. I was 9 at the time, and knew well enough from my dad and how he talked that we could probably be there for a few years instead of a few months. Just after my 10th birthday, I started getting some serious nightmares. I thought I was too old for nightmares, but I guess not. I would go to bed at night and be afraid of what was outside my window. Some nights, my whole window would get completely pitch dark outside, which was odd because at the time, we had a backyard that was kind of big, and we didn't have any neighbors behind us, so I would be scared when I saw things. Sometimes, the window would go completely dark outside, as if something would be covering it. Other times, I thought I saw the shadow of a man standing at my window. One night, I thought I saw a man standing outside. Normally, he just stood there, and eventually, when I fell asleep and woke up, he would be gone. But that night, he seemed to move slowly to the next window and banged really hard on it with his fist. I was scared and yelling, hiding under my covers. I heard the door to my room open, and somebody pulled the covers off. It was my father. He asked me what the hell was going on in here, because he could hear banging all the way from his room on the other side of the house. I told him somebody was outside the window, banging. He left the room to look around the house, but he said he didn't find anything. This happened 6 more times before we left that house. My dad said he was getting tired of my lying until the 5th time it happened. That time, he went outside and saw a large animal of some kind running over the fence in the backyard. He was worried that he saw something was trying to get in through my window. The next day, he placed a few traps outside, and when it came back again in a few days, the man or thing banged on the window, but just after I heard a yell cry out from the man, it was a large cry, but almost sounded like a howl. I rushed to the window and peeked out at it slowly when I saw my dad chasing a man over the fence in the backyard. On the ground by the trap, I saw a cigarette laying next to it, and inside the trap was a bloody sandal, and also what appeared to be a tuft of fur. I thought that was odd, and wondered why he had such hairy feet. I didn't know what that was back then. I just thought I was imagining it like other things I would. The next time I thought I saw something weird was when I went to a carnival that I was speaking of. I was 16 and currently visiting my family and cousins that resided in Oregon. That's when I learned that I was colorblind for the first time. We were visiting the carnival that came through town, and then the main thing this carnival liked to indulge in was colors. Now that sounds average for a carnival, but this one liked to color everything. There was not one thing there that was a single color. That's when I began commenting on the different colors of things, and how they looked odd. My cousin mentioned and pointed out that the colors made sense, until I started talking about them. He told me that I was seeing was not the colors I thought they were, and my other cousins confirmed it. I figured out that what I saw was some kinds of blue, but I was actually seeing green, and browns looked yellow to me, and so on. I don't know when I became colorblind, or what. So I saw some animals at the carnival that nobody else could see. I saw the giraffe with yellow spots and slightly darker yellow skin. Anyway, when I was 19, I enlisted into the army, and they sent me off to Iraq to fight in the war. I was more level-headed than I was when I was younger. I found that out if I try not to daydream as much and focus on something that wouldn't appear. My squad and I were pinned down, trying to save some civilians trapped in a house. A bomb had exploded outside the building, and it caved in on them. They weren't hurt, as only one side of the house had fallen in and collapsed. Some of the enemies were trying to creep in the back door and capture the civilians. They launched a bomb at us, and it disoriented me, but did not hurt me. I was knocked down and saw one of the male civilians run out of the room, and then a jackal ran into the room where the man ran to. It began screeching at the enemy soldiers and biting them ferociously. It knocked one of them over and bit another one repeatedly until it looked like he had bled out. This half-man, half-jackal thing that I saw then ran back, picked up a little boy and a little girl, and then ran on the way back. Then this half-jackal, half-human-looking creature picked up this little boy and this little girl and ran off with them. We eventually cleared the enemies and the rubble out so we could save the man that was left behind in the remaining room, but everything else was empty. The last encounter I thought I had with a weird beast-like creature was after I returned home from war. I had just gotten a job as a natural life reserve as a custodian. I cleaned up after the animals when they were out of their sleeping area and cleaned up the park after the guests. There was one employee there that I thought was very odd. He was a Native American man that was some of the animals' handlers. The animals seemed to obey what he would say more than the rest of the handlers. He spent the most time with them, so it made sense that they would obey him more. But something just seemed strange about this man. I noticed at the time that he would talk to them, but not like training them. I noticed he would talk to them about life and other things, and that he would also respond to them as if they were talking back to them. It didn't look as if animals were speaking, but they made gestures that clearly showed that they were paying attention to him when he spoke. Anyway, after I quit that job was when I got my checkup. That is when I was diagnosed with schizophrenia, so I cannot say for sure if anything I saw or heard before that time was real, or if it was just my head playing games. I take medication for it now, and don't see as many things as I used to, but I always wondered what those things were. Maybe I'll never know.